I sometimes say, well, why do you work in ceramic as opposed to other media? The answer I almost always give is permanence. I'm making something for all time. I'm not just making something for today. I'm making something that has the ability to stand and last through the ages. What brought me to this was seeing a burial show at County Museum of Art. Many years ago I saw the King Tut exhibit and saw all these beautiful objects that were meant to be buried with the pharaoh, that were made by the best craftsmen and artisans of the time, alabaster carvings, ceramics, wood, furniture, clothing, everything. All of it made by the best artists of the day, all of it meant to be put away in a tomb, never to be seen by anyone. And now everyone in the world has seen them. There's something very interesting about that. It made me start thinking, what do we do today to memorialize the dead or to honor the dead? We don't do anything. We do very little. Our culture really wants to ignore death, not talk about it. And I thought, well, I don't want to be interred in a royal tomb like King Tut in a fancy sarcophagus, but I would like to be cremated and have some special object. And I thought, well, I'll probably have to make that. And so I started thinking, if I were going to be cremated, and I was a young man, maybe 30 years old at the time, 70 years old now, I thought, well, I'll have to make it. So what would if I made, it was this like a project for myself, if I was going to design a burial urn for me, what would it be? That's where this idea started. So for 40 years I've been making burial urns and made about 60, maybe 70 of them over the years. Most of them for people I know, many of whom are still alive, thank goodness, but some of whom are gone. And it's just nice to know that that object goes with that person. And now with cremation, most people choose to keep that beautiful object in their home. I've been working on the layouts for Esther's urn, and I've got, I think, 7 or 8 possibilities, and I based them on the ideas that you bounced off me last time of utilizing, first of all, the beautiful photograph of Esther as a young woman, which is melancholy and beautiful, and there's a certain sadness in that picture that I really related to. She seems very proud and yet at the same time very vulnerable in the photograph. I think it was a beautiful photograph to pick of her. So this one is with, I don't know if you can recognize it immediately, but it's almost an abstract pattern of corn. And what's really interesting about this image is I took it from a pre-Columbian Mayan stone sculpture, which covered in relief all over the whole surface was maize. And so I used that as a building block and created a pattern there to make it almost abstract. And like when we look at the Roman and Greek sculptures, we think they're very beautiful because they're so simple and you just see the stone. But of course the paint is all worn off. Originally they were quite garish. And the same with these Mayan ones. They were richly highly painted, and what remained was a little bit of oxide pigment in the background of the carving. And so working with that kind of reddish earth tone, I bumped it up into this one to make that more pronounced. So these are very similar, except this one has bumped up that iron oxide tone to it. So those are two. I personally really like these because I think it focuses on her and her heritage as a Mexican-American woman is, from where she came. And so I see her emerging out of that here, in a sense, almost pre-Columbian past. So that's this one. Then you also, I thought, well, let's look at what we could do with music. And here are several. Here's one where I bumped up the size, and because all of this stuff can be played with, I bumped up the size of the notes so that you could see that more clearly it was musical notation. Now, the question I have, Richard, is we talked about this, that since you're here during the process of putting it together, you could write a personal message on the inside of the urn that would be like a message in a bottle that would go through time, sealed inside this chamber. I don't know whether you want to do that or not, but if you do, now's the time. This is why cutting the pieces out to the correct size is so important. Let's go to the next one, and then try to forget this. The challenge here was I have a shape of an urn that I've used for several years now that I think is very successful. But what I wanted to do was find a way to create within this single person urn 2 compartments. So here's what I came up with. Same basic shape, and there's a lid here which opens into, if you want to pan inside, you can see that there's an internal compartment. There's a floor and a wall inside there. So that way the photographs can go in there. And then this secondary opening over here, these are wonderful little objects all by themselves. This is where the ashes go. So you would put a funnel and you would pour the ashes in, and the ashes would go down this chute, and then across here, this whole area here is where the ashes go. So ashes go in and can fill this entire area, and from here up is a container for the ceramic photographs to go in as separate items. So stage 1, rough finish. Stage 2, smooth finish. Stage 3 is the first fire bisque, and then the glazes will go on, and then we end up at the end. So a lot of steps. A lot of steps, yeah. So okay, so I think it's good to open. Looks like it's 69 degrees in there. I like to wait until it's pretty much room temperature, because I don't want, if you take them out too hot, you know, because you're all excited, you can crack the pieces. But this is now down to 69, so we can open it up and hope everything is good. Usually, this last firing, the third firing with the images, is usually pretty good, but once in a while something can go wrong. All right, but let's hope not. All right, here we go. So let's take a look. Oh, good. Looks good. All right. Okay, so now the images are fired on and permanent. I want to look at the other side, can I?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Oh, good, good, good. All right. This is all right. The lids with the Chrysler building. Okay, that all looks good. All right. Oh, good. Okay, and the little baby. All right. Okay. And then, of course, these are the pictures, the personal pics. There's La Liz with Esther. Yeah. So these look good. There's Esther and Pete. And Esther and that handsome Richard. And that Esther and that handsome Abel. Oh. And then here's one I just decided to include from her memorial, because it's just her at her most elegant, I think. And these, of course, then are meant to go inside the envelope. So, all is good. It just gives me a lot of pleasure to know that I can make an object that personal, that unique. Each one's different for the person, and so it's just a way to remember our loved ones who've gone, and in a way that doesn't seem macabre, I hope, or weird or depressing, but life affirming.